Right, Sam, it's an absolute pleasure to have you back on the podcast today. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good.
Good,
It's
good,
nice to
good.
be back.
Yeah, no, it's been a while. I don't know how long it's been. It's probably been 6, 7 months, probably. I think when we last did
Yeah.
one. But yeah, no, it's good to have you back. And yeah, we for the podcast today, we've got like a few topics because you want to cover like discipline, insecurities, self-discipline. Do you want to start off with like self-discipline, and like the importance of it, like kind of what you were thinking around it recently?
Yeah. So one thing that I'm like when it comes to personal discipline, it's really a challenge. I know for myself and for other people, there's so much in life that demands, our attention. And personally I'm learning that even like when those moments or those days when you're like, I need a personal day. I need a day for myself. Even setting parameters for those personal days because I noticed for myself I'm just going to use today to relax. I'm not going to do nothing today. It sounds good, it sounds refreshing, but then for me that throws me down into a cycle of not doing nothing, and then things get worse and compile, and then it's like I look back 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, I'm like I haven't achieved anything in these last couple of weeks besides get up, go to work. So setting some boundaries and parameters, some things that you have to discipline yourself to do every day, whether it's get up at a certain time, eat a certain type of meal every day or breakfast, or you're gonna clean the house at a certain time every day or every weekend. That kind of creates a bit of structure I found for myself that allows me to not allow my life and my time to go to waste.
Yeah, no, I think that's a really great point. And like what comes to my mind, thinking about it, like you said, you know, you can set things to do, and then if you don't do them after a couple of weeks, you feel bad because you haven't done X, Y, Z. You know, whether that's like working on a project or things like that. And I think like with time and when you throw work into the balance and things like that, it can be quite difficult to kind of structure and discipline yourself to do certain things. Because sometimes when you're working, you come home and you feel tired and you can sit down and then that thing you might need to do, it depends what you're doing. You know, you might put it
Mhm.
off and say, "Oh, I'm going to do it tomorrow." And then before you know it, like a week or two's gone by and you're like, "Oh man." But I can definitely relate to that. And I think for me, I think like it's those kind of little tiny things that can make a big difference, isn't it? Like you said, like whether that's cleaning or so everyone's different, but I think sometimes if you can do something, it can kind of get you into that kind of zone. If you're cleaning
Mhm.
or if you make your bed or stuff like that, it's
Yeah.
um it's really interesting. But I think it is really important because um you want to get those things done, but at some point.
Yeah. I definitely agree. Like you said, something, and the discipline doesn't have to be a major thing. It can be like every weekday, for instance, I'm getting up at 5:45. I'm gonna do my workout in the morning. On the weekends, I'm not gonna sleep until 12 in the afternoon. Maybe I'll sleep in a little bit, but I'll sleep until 9 o'clock.
Mm.
And then sticking with those, it kind of creates because our psychology is structured. We need our body, our brain looks for patterns, it looks for something that is familiar to do. So Monday to Friday, we have our work schedule, our work week. So we know our pattern, what we have to do. I got to get up at this time if I want to be at work at this time, which means if I want to have breakfast, I got to wake up at that time. When the weekend hits or we're taking a personal day, that means that we're unstructured. And then our psychology doesn't do well with that, because especially if it's unplanned, because all of a sudden that balance of what the body's used to is thrown out the window, which
Mm.
leaves Monday you're gonna have to reset again. And then two, you do that too often, if you have to study for an exam, or if fitness is your thing, or if you're taking a class, or you're building building something,
Yeah.
all of a sudden now you don't have the time to do it because you allowed yourself to be undisciplined for that period of time.
Mm. Yeah, definitely. And I think like with that, I think like they can kind of relate. and kind of connect into like kind of guilt. Like we were talking before, like, if you don't get certain things done, then you feel bad. And then
Mhm.
it can just kind of throw your mood off. And then if you have that drive in you and you got all that energy and you know that you've got that energy and you really want that thing to be doing, that can get like frustrating, when you've been working and then something you want to do hasn't been done, and then it can kind of
Mhm.
compound. And I when you talk about like body, like your body clock, waking up at certain times and then that time goes on. I remember, when I worked in restaurants, like I remember weekends you was very, very lucky if you got a weekend off. So you trying to plan things around, and because like you said, that Monday to Friday kind of mindset of wanting a weekend off, it would just throw you off course. And
Mhm.
like you said, self-discipline is so important. And like what would you say helps you, like, to be self-disciplined, or how do you kind of manage it in your life, if that makes sense, or things like that?
Mhm. Um, for me, I've learned one. I think you have to be aware, like understand yourself, see where your downfalls are. I'm a huge procrastinator, so I know I'm. It's easy if I give myself a second to think. I'm gonna make a million reasons why not to do something, whether that's get up in the morning or make my bed. So a lot of times it's don't think. Like half the times,
Yeah.
if I committed, if I already thought about I'm gonna be waking up at 5:45, or I'm gonna make my bed every morning, I can literally make a reason not to do any of those two things.
Mm,
So just commit to it early and then just go ahead and do it. Another
mm,
thing that's good is making your bed every morning. It's a simple meal. It's like menial. Make your bed, throw your sheets up, make your bed look nice, but it creates that. It starts building that foundation of discipline because
mm.
you have to make yourself do that, even though you might have a dozen things to do to get ready for the morning to go to work or school, but that starts that pattern, and then you're successful at that, and then it lays the foundation for you to be like, it's like a muscle. Once you start
Mm,
becoming successful at doing this, then you're like, oh, what's something else I need to do? I need to start making breakfast because I don't eat breakfast and I'm always grumpy when I don't, or I can't think straight when I don't. And then okay, so you can commit to something else, maybe pre-packaging breakfast the night before,
yeah.
or laying all this stuff out for breakfast.
I love that. I think that's so important. Like you said, there's always a way around it. Like you said, you could plan ahead, pre-package your breakfast or lunch or whatever, so you don't have to spend time doing it the next day. So it's a lot of it comes down to accountability, and that's what I really, what I'm hearing from what you're saying, and what I
Mhm.
really like about you is that you're very accountable and you're honest, and you're saying this is what it is, this is how it is. You're not making excuses and kind of covering up what's kind of happening or what's going on.
Mhm.
Like a lot of people will completely overthrow what is happening, saying, "Oh well, it's not me, it's the weather or whatever."
Mhm.
You're very like accountable, and I think that's one of the important things with discipline as well is kind of holding yourself accountable. Or like for me, I've got a friend. I'll give her a shout out, Veronica. she she's a good friend of mine, and she'll go over my hashtag sometimes, and she's like, "Oh, you should be working on this and that," and she kind of holds me accountable for keeps me kind of like in check sometimes, and that helps. And I think probably like accountability is probably a big thing as well, isn't it? Kind of they all kind of tie in together. But I think what you mentioned as well, like first thing in the morning, making your bed and kind of starting that kind of positive groove in a good direction.
Yeah, and that's so you're right with accountability. My take on accountability is, mm, somebody can be help. They can hold you accountable because I see on Instagram who wants to be my accountability workout buddy or something
Mm,
like that, and then I might join the group, and then people are holding each other accountable for the first 2 3 days, and then they start falling off and not making holding each other accountable. Like that's a courtesy accountability. They don't have to. They have their own lives. But
yeah.
like if it's something that's important to me, I have to commit to it, and I have to hold myself accountable to it.
Mm.
If I set a certain standard and I'm not reaching it because I'm not building my self discipline, then who Joe down the street, they might be like, "Oh man, I'm sorry you didn't make that test, or you weren't able to close that deal, or you didn't make that competition or whatever because you weren't doing the things you had to do." But he goes about his day and the rest of his life unaffected. I'm the one at the end of the day that's going to be affected by my actions.
Mm.
So that's why I feel for me, and I'm still learning to find a balance with accountability and not judging myself. Accountability is so important to me.
Definitely. That's a really good point you mentioned, with people, like that other person who, like say, may go about their day and they're kind of checking in with you. It's you at the end of the day who's needing that check in, if that makes sense, and they can just kind of do their own thing. And I think it's so important, isn't it? It's so important to, it kind of comes down to self awareness as well, you
Mhm.
know, to check in with yourself. And because I think like we've all got blind spots, as a human being. And I think sometimes you kind of need that other person sometimes to check in with you, isn't it?
Yeah.
And I think if you really, it's kind of comes down to like, your why, like why is it that you kind of want to do whatever it is that you want to work on? That I think that can be a big driving force sometimes if you think about, the reason why you're trying to build, do you know what I mean? That thing.
I think so. I think so too. I think it comes down a lot of times to why you want to do it. At the
Mm,
same time, and this kind of ties second into the second thought of
yeah.
insecurities. Um, you might not even realize that you're insecure about something. That's why you need that accountability partner. For instance, I think a lot of times about people who are trying to lose weight, they need an accountability partner to check in on them, to make
Mm,
sure that they're not cheating on their diet, to make sure that they're actually getting into workouts and stuff like that. It's something that they want. If you ask them why they want it, they might know why they want it. Sometimes they don't, but let's say we're for this example, somebody that does. But then if they're insecure about who they are and they're afraid of that change that they're going to make and how it might affect them, how other people might view them because they're not comfortable with themselves, then that can lead to them needing somebody else to push them because accountability comes with responsibility. At that point that you hold yourself accountable, you're responsible for everything you do from that second forward, whether it's good or bad, moving towards your goal or whatever you're trying to accomplish.
mm. Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think that's a really great point. And with insecurities and accountability, like it kind of ties in, like you said, that person, if that person doesn't really know themselves or they feel not very confident or insecure in certain areas of their life, then they might be worrying about the effect of probably say, if it's losing weight or whatever, of how they maybe going to be perceived if they do XYZ. And that it tie that must tie into a lot of things. I mean, I think that's what there's a lot of kind of insecurities. We've all got insecurities, but I think um I definitely see it on social media, with like, working out and weight loss, and it's a very personal thing, isn't it? And everyone's kind of got their own insecurities, but I think it's um it's so important that they have that kind of trust as well, probably, that with that accountability to kind
Mhm.
of support them in that and understand it as well.
Mhm. Yeah, and it can really just spill over into anything when it comes to your insecurities. Sometimes you might think of musicians, listen to a song, and the musician's talking about how people are telling them that they're gonna change if they make it, or B they're gonna act like they don't know nobody once they get big, and that might be a form of insecurity. They don't want to leave nobody behind.
Mm,
They want to keep their family and everybody as close knit as possible. But then at the same time, because you're insecure about that, now you might pass on that gig or that collaboration with that artist, or you're gonna get in your own way, trip yourself up, just so that way you don't fulfill that insecurity that you
Mm,
have. So I think it's really
mm,
for me, I'm learning, for instance, I know how to gain weight, how to put muscle mass in my body and grow within a short period of time. It takes a lot of work because of my body type and my metabolism and everything. But I've recently realized I have an insecurity of if I get too big, if I actually hit that milestone weight that I want, how I might be perceived. Oh, I might be looked at like one of those guys that's just like a douchebag or playboy, or but no one's gonna be able to look at me like somebody who wants a long term relationship, or I'm just full of vanity. When deep down
mm,
inside, I know I'm much more than surface level when it comes to my relationships, my friendships, and or how my clothes is gonna look on me. Once I start putting on more weight, all my clothes is gonna shrink on me. So
yeah.
it's like learning and understanding those insecurities and getting comfortable with those concepts of, well, one, whose opinion really matters to me. Two, what's important. Like, so if John's opinion of how I look, or Sarah's opinion of how I look, if I don't know who she is and I don't value her in my personal friendships, in my personal life, then her opinion really shouldn't mean much to me.
Mm,
And then really, like, where do my standards lie? Where does my commitment lie? Is it to myself and the way I feel and the people in my life that matter, or is it to everybody else's opinion and thoughts about me that are feeding my insecurities?
mm, definitely. It's it's very deep, isn't it? When you start going into it, there's so many layers to like insecurities, and I think, like you said, um, you like working out, and like you said, what are people going to think, and people be, how you're going to be judged, even though you're like benefiting yourself and you're growing yourself, even though it is all positive for yourself. There's like, like, what are people going to think, and how are people going to react, and I think that's something that things pop up, don't they? Things come up, and they can sometimes, if like you're aware, you're aware of this, so you can do things with it. But some people, I think, can kind of be so accustomed to it happening and not have that self awareness, and then they put things off, or they don't take certain offers that get presented to them because those insecurities come up, and then before you know it, 5 years have gone by, or whatever, and
Mhm.
it's like, that self awareness, and being able to approach that in a good way is a strength. I think it's a skill that you have, and a lot of people don't want to be. A lot of people don't want to look at themselves. Some people, do you know what I mean? There's so many people. Some people very have barriers up, and they continue to be a certain way. Then there's a lot of people who are open, and they are taking those steps. It's all about those small steps, isn't it? Of just
Mhm.
um, kind of going into it and being like, okay, so what is this? Okay, and then taking responsibility for it.
Yeah, and you're right. It's so true with those little steps because, for instance, one thing I I grew up in my crazy childhood
Yeah.
where, like, as a guy, I'm not supposed to be without a shirt. That was a standard. I shouldn't be seen without a shirt. So that creates a whole slew of insecurities
Mm,
of if I want to post something without a shirt. But then it becomes, as I'm working and building myself up from the inside out, these last couple of months, they've taught me, one, that's
yeah.
wrong programming. We're completely programmed. I have been completely programmed wrong. A
Mm,
lot of people have been programmed wrong from their childhood. And the years that they're supposed to be molded to be a good, to be the person that they are.
yeah.
So it's taking little steps for me of being playing basketball, or
Yeah.
putting something on my story with me without a shirt,
Yeah.
maybe, or even just doing something, going for a run without a shirt, no cameras involved, and then later on putting something on my story, then later on doing a post, and that's how I've been doing for myself with a little incremental steps,
Yeah.
helping me to get rid of those insecurities of being shirtless, and then you take that risk and put yourself out there once you get to
Yeah.
that point. and then you see, oh, nobody really cares. The world
Mm,
isn't the way that you know it's really affecting nobody the way that I thought it was going to affect people. And it helps one more that those little disciplines to squash out those insecurities that I've had for a long time.
yeah, definitely. I think that's really powerful. I think that's so powerful when you think about that. And from what you said, um, those little 1% of just, say taking a photo or doing a little video, say whether that's a workout. Because I saw, some of your clips like are amazing, and like I saw one of, I think what was it? Was you doing I think you was either doing press ups or you was doing those is it ring rows or something?
Pull-ups.
Pull
What
up. I
was
think
it?
it's I think it was those where you hold the discs on like a rope. You was doing something on them, or you was doing pull ups or something.
Yeah, there might have been a while ago.
Yeah, and
I was.
I was like, that's awesome, and I was like, fair play. Like that's take, it can take a lot for people to do stuff like that. To post, workout videos or photos. And I think you're doing great. And I think, like you said, it's those 1% that just add up over time. You get more comfortable, and then you start to realize, like you said, you know, no one's saying anything. Kind of what was I worrying about? But like you said, when you go back to your childhood and those insecurities, I mean, that's a big thing. From a young age. So I think it's good that you're kind of working you know, on that by doing what you're doing. And I think that will help like a lot of people understand, probably their own insecurities and things that they can do, because I mean, there's going to be people out there who might have insecurities, doing video content or, there's so many kind of areas of people's lives. And just those kind of 1%, isn't it? Do a small video clip, just put a photo, do 10 seconds, I don't know, talking into the camera about something.
Hmm.
And then, like you said, over time, you've got like a 2 or 3 minute video or whatever it is.
Yeah, and then and that's something too. I like hate being in front of the camera.
Mm,
99% of the time, I hate being in front of the camera. I feel like I'm under a microscope. I feel like I'm being micro-examined. When I know that's in here, a lot of insecurities in here, because
yeah.
most of the time that's not what's happening. But just going ahead and recording the video and then just posting it. That's one
Mm,
reason why a lot of my videos are unedited, except for my TikToks and my Reels. Just about everything that goes on Instagram is raw
yeah.
because I can talk myself out of it. So
Yeah.
I once I determine I'm going to post this video and I'm just going to post it. Literally, I just type in my caption, and it comes to, and then
Then
just
do
hit
it.
post.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then no, I'm not. I'm committed that this video is staying up here because that's a step A in disciplining myself, and B taking me a step closer to where I'm trying to go, where I want to
Mm,
be. But it has to do with that commitment again, and then holding myself accountable to not actually going ahead and deleting that video or
mm,
just throwing it in my drafts and not posting it because that's more comfortable for me to do than actually going and committing.
yeah. Definitely. There's a lot to it, isn't there? I mean, there's a lot of accountability, a lot of discipline, even with posting content and feeling okay about it, even if you don't feel 100%, still kind of just doing it anyway. And I saw one of your clips, and I can't remember which clip I don't know, I can't remember what you was doing, but you was trying to get this clip right. You was trying to get something right, and then I think you made like 20 or something mistakes. So you said this was trying. You documented it and you still put it up, even though you said this took me however long to get this clip done. You still like put it out there, and I was like, that's awesome.
Yeah, and definitely, and going back a little bit further to
Yeah,
what our pre podcast conversation,
yeah,
there's a lot of times where people have because ADHD,
mm,
depression, those are all either chemical imbalances. ADHD that's a genetic. That literally for someone with ADD, ADHD that impacts their life, their
mm,
brain is wired literally so different from the average human's brain. So it creates a physical barrier or limitation that a lot of times they might not even realize, or if they know they have ADD, ADHD, they might not understand the gravity of how much it can actually limit them. and realizing myself being on medication, being off medication for ADHD, I see a huge difference in my productivity. But then it really just showed me the five, six, seven thoughts zooming through my mind at the same time. That really that was a limiting factor that I didn't realize that I had.
Mm,
And that's partially some of the reason why I second guessed myself. A lot of my insecurities came because a lot of negative thoughts flowed in unrestrained. But it just a lot of the progress I've done over the last 5 years have been with an undiagnosed behavioral disorder.
mm,
So it's still possible. It's going to take more work. It just depends how committed you are as a person to accomplishing what you want to accomplish.
mm. Yeah. No, that's definitely it. And I think, like you said, when you kind of talk about, ADD or ADHD and these kind of other factors, there's you're gonna kind of be in different emotional states, and then um, different behaviors, different emotions. So there's gonna be like those challenges, with perhaps, doing certain things that you want to do. But I think, like, as long as you're aware of it, and you're still putting one foot in front of the other, if that makes sense, like those
Mhm.
kind of 1% that we mentioned, you're still taking those steps, and you're not being held back or letting that ADHD or ADD, kind of hold you back from what you're doing. I think that's something that you're like doing. You're showing up, and you're putting in those reps, so to speak.
Yeah. I feel like regardless of what you have going on, what kind of past you have, it
Yeah,
can be two people that they need to get to the same destination. One person is walking, both of them start walking, and then one stops because he's tired and he's carrying a lot of weight. The other person might be carrying the same exact weight. They might not be walking as fast after walking a couple of miles, they're walking slower, but they're still making progress.
yeah,
Might not be as fast, they might not get there in the time frame they want or as fast as they want, but there's still, when you look at the person that stopped and the guy that kept going, there's still distance between them. And
mm,
that's how it is regardless of where you're at in your personal growth as a person. you know as long as you keep yourself accountable to nobody's going to hit me where I gotta go.
yeah,
Like that's how I started with literally just my legs to commute places.
yeah,
And there was days where I didn't want to go because I had to get up at 5 in the morning so I could be where I
yeah,
have to go, walk 2 hours, 3 hours, what the sorts was. And there was nobody going to do it for me. Nobody was literally going to pick me up and carry me along. It was just me on my own. So
mm,
that's why, like, for me, accountability and just knowing I might not be going as fast as I want. Give yourself that grace period, especially if you have a traumatic background. If you
yeah,
if you have a behavioral disorder, if you have physical limitation, it doesn't mean it's impossible for you. It
mm,
just means you might not be going as fast as you want to go, but you can still get to your goal.
mm. I love that. I really, I really think that's really so true. And like you said, people might be ahead of you, or you might, someone's moving faster than you, and you still kind of made that progress to where you're at, and everyone's kind of like, like I said, one guy might be ahead of you, but you're still kind of moving in that same motion.
Mhm,
And especially like when you think about public past traumas and things like that. Um, Sometimes like we can kind of want to be in a certain place that we're not yet, but as long as you're kind of making those steps to that place. And I mean, I think when I went through, the PTSD that I had in the past, I remember wanting to be in XYZ place, but I wasn't, and I wasn't ready, and it wasn't meant to be yet. Do you know?
mhm,
That's a hard pill to swallow when you're feeling a certain way or something's happening. You want to be feeling like XYZ, or you want certain things happening in your life, but it's saying to yourself, tr- trying to accept it and just be like, it's kind of not meant to be yet, and
mhm,
still making those steps. And I think, that's kind of like life, isn't it? Like things take time and patience, and like, Gary Vee talks about patience a lot, doesn't it?
mhm,
And you it is all a kind of a process, and we're all kind of, I think, learning as we kind of go along. And
Hmm.
I think, especially when you have a lot of drive and energy, that can be difficult.
Yeah.
And I think, but in the long term of it, the long term, you're gonna appreciate, you're gonna appreciate whatever it is that you're kind of working towards. That makes sense when you kind of get it.
Yeah. And I think it's just so true. Right now might not be the right time for you. With you might feel like it's the right time because you want it, but it might not be the right time for you. When I moved down to Florida a year ago, I
Mm,
had grand plans and I was going to be in one location. When I moved down to Florida, I started selling health insurance. That's what I was doing when I was on T with Gary Vee. I didn't imagine myself dropping out of selling health insurance and going back to work in the medical field.
mm,
But what I didn't realize was doing the selling health insurance and being a salesman for 8 months, and taught me how to communicate on the phones and how to interact with people a lot more than I already thought I knew how to, and it created other opportunities at my current employment in management positions, which I would have, it was part of my goal in the future, but I would have never realized how important that was for me. So it wasn't my time. And I felt like, my communication issues at the time when I was doing sales, it was so difficult keeping that one train of thought, not realizing I had the ADHD as well. And then combining that with my past trauma and people bringing up that past trauma without meaning to because of things that they were doing. And it just kept hindering me from progressing in the way I wanted. But
mm,
then, now I see it really was a blessing. It wasn't the time. It wasn't the time. That wasn't the place, and it's just setting me up to do more better in the future when God willing, I'm able to go ahead and open my own fitness business and have my own employees and gym and learn how to do all that. And it's just you have to be patient, really.
yeah.
And patience isn't one; it's not the number one top quality in school. And two, it's something that you have to learn about yourself. Really, how patient are you? And you got to learn why you want what you want, and
Mm,
do you want it for other people? Because are you those other people are not going to keep you accountable for what you're doing. You got to want it for you.
mm, mm. Yeah, no, it's so true, isn't it? And I think it's it's like when you said about, like the job you was doing in Florida, you mentioned, like, and probably not wanting to be doing that, but then all of these kind of jobs or experiences are all kind of shaping you and making you resilient, for, like, the future. And I think until, like, you kind of think about it and connect the dots, it kind of makes sense. And I think at the time it's difficult because you just kind of want out, or you're just like, why is this kind of happening? And
Hmm.
I think that's what happens with a lot of people. I think so many people experience that. I
Yeah.
think, um, I think COVID's been a massive eye opener for a lot of people,
Hmm.
and probably a lot of people think, why is this happening to me? Whatever situation they're involved in. But then when you look forward, probably like a year later, you know, it's it was just probably meant to be, or it was meant to happen to kind of make you whoever you are now. So it's there's so many layers. There's so many layers to it, and like it
Hmm.
all kind of connects to accountability. It all connects to patience, insecurities, discipline. Things that we've been talking about. They all kind of interconnect, and
Hmm.
it's so important to like to be aware of that, isn't it? And to have conversations like this, because having conversations like this, it gets you thinking. Like I'm thinking about these things as we're talking, and I think people who are listening, it's going to make them probably think about what they're doing. That's the kind of the quite um, important topics.
Yeah. I think it's so true. Two people can literally be thrown a lemon, and not know it. One person has no idea what to do with it. They're like, this thing is the most sour, disgusting thing in the world. The other person can literally be thrown the same exact lemon and learn how and make lemonade and
Mm,
sell that and make money, make themselves better. I think COVID, and a lot of it comes down to your personal commitment to yourself. When COVID started, I remember thinking to myself, I'm walking into this, and I said, I don't know how, but I'm going to make 2020 the most productive year of my life. It's going to be the biggest year for personal growth. It's going to be the biggest financial year for me. And I'm going to walk away with a lot more experience. I remember when it happened, I said, I don't know how, but this is going to happen. I thought it was going to be through selling health insurance. That was not the case, but that did teach me a lot about myself. It taught me not to compress and suppress trauma. If something's coming up, I need to learn to deal with it, not put it in the back burner, because literally I did that for 8 months and that burned me for 6 or more months of really deep down lows. And financially, I'm coming out stronger than I did before COVID, after, or towards, the end, hopefully the end of what this pandemic is. And it's funny because so many people have been in the same position and not and it really just has to do with how you speak to yourself, how you communicate yourself to yourself, how you view yourself, what you commit to yourself. Because there are people who started at the same thing, and they're either worse, or they're living off of the government, or off of somebody else living. They had to move back home with their parents or something like that, and they haven't made any growth, any personal growth as a person, or any way, in any shape or form in their life. And that's not a bad thing. They
mm,
just need to know, if I want more out of life and not to be living by somebody else's standard, somebody else's demands, then you have to demand what you want out of your life, and life will give it to you. You just got to know that you need to go ahead and commit to yourself what it is that you want, and then take one step, a little step in that direction.
mm. No, definitely. I love that. I love that, and I think that's so true. And I think it's definitely comes down to that commitment, like you said, mate. Deciding in your mind what it is that you want, what you want to do, and like you said, when COVID happened, you just decided this is. I don't know how. I don't know how it's going to happen, but this is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm deciding to do. I don't. And that's taking a massive leap of faith. Do you know what I mean? Like into the unknown. I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm willing to get X, Y, Z. And I think, like you said, a lot of people in different situations, and it's completely fine, whatever situation people are in. But it's on them. You can make something happen if you really put your mind to it,
Yeah.
and it's definitely been a massive eye opener. I just recommend you for all that you do, and like it's really motivating, inspiring you talking to you, and just seeing like you on your path and everything that you do and what you're working towards. It's really nice to see, and it's quite powerful when you kind of think about it all.
Hmm. And that's something that I really sometimes I wish people can actually understand.
Yeah,
If they want whatever it is, and they're willing to put in the work, they can get.
yeah,
And that's honestly what I hope. In this podcast with you, people are able to take away some key points and say, "Oh, I've never thought about that," or, "Oh, that's actually what I'm lacking right now in life," or,
mm,
I didn't realize that I had that flaw or that insecurity, or I lacked that discipline in that area, and that's why I keep falling on my face. And then I might give them that tool that they need, and that bit of encouragement to continue going a little bit further in
yeah,
whatever it is they're trying to do.
mm, definitely, definitely. No, it's so powerful, and I wish people hope to people take something from this, and really think about the things that we've been talking about, and like you said, you can kind of you can achieve, whatever you set your mind to, as long as you decide, isn't it? And put in that work to make it happen. It's so vital. And is there anything else that you kind of want to mention? Is there anything else that you like to go into?
I think really that I think that was a lot that
Yeah, yeah, it was.
we
Yeah,
tossed upon people.
we
It,
we
I think at the end of the day, again, it doesn't matter what kind of background you have. Whether
mm,
just about everybody that's going undergoing other mental or emotional
yeah,
trauma, or that's undergoing limitations mentally, emotionally, they can find somebody else out there. They're not. That's the beautiful thing about life and the internet. There's so many people out there, that are undergoing the same things. Some that are
mm,
doing nothing about themselves in life, and some that are doing something. You
mm,
can look at both of them and see where each of them are. We have paraplegics, or I'm sorry, we have like some Special Olympics. And I
yeah,
see people that wanted to be athletes, want to be athletes, but they might have been born with a deformity, or they might been born with a mental disorder,
mm,
or they were in an accident, and that's preventing them from participating in the sport they want to do. But then, they can live in that reality that they made for themselves, or they can go ahead and look at this for the Special Olympics or other teams that for people with disabilities, and see, oh, let me see how they're living their life, what they're doing, what challenges they go through that I might go through, and
mm,
then create an alternative reality for themselves. And so you don't have to limit yourself to what you believe is your reality right now, if that's
mm,
not the reality you want to be living.
mm,
And I think it's important that everybody knows that.
mm. Yeah, that's a great point. I think, like sometimes people get into that kind of probably victim mentality of, this is my situation. But then when you look at other people who are doing certain things and they're using, um, they're putting a flip on it, they're changing it around, like you say, whether that's special, in the Olympic side of it, and not letting that thing stop them from doing what they want to do. And I think like there is all the people in, like I said, people out there in the world who you can connect with through the internet who may be going through something that you've been through, or in the same place that you was in, or they might have a certain kind of disability, and they're doing like like the Olympics. There are so many areas. So I think deep down we're not alone, and that can be inspiring to somebody. That could be the trigger for them to go and do that thing. That's
Yeah.
all it takes. It's and that yeah, yeah, people aren't alone, as you said.
Yep.
And
Definitely. I believe that 100% that.
mm,
And I forgot exactly what I was gonna say.
yeah, no, it's cool.
That's the beauty of ADHD.
Yeah,
But I will say, um, you can connect with them. You can learn from
yeah,
them. Let that be the catalyst to move
mm,
you and propel you forward in the direction that you want to go.
yeah,
You don't
definitely.
have to be miserable because everybody else around you is miserable and they don't want to get out of that mess that they're in,
Yeah,
just because they're not there to support you. Kobe Bryant, when he was in his career, in his
yeah,
height of his career, and there's one video or a couple of videos on YouTube you can find where he talks about he knew he was going to have to make sacrifices, that he was going to have to leave people behind. Lisa Nichols, when she was spending the 10 years bettering herself as a
mm,
person, people are like, oh, well, you're going to leave your family behind. And she's like, well, I don't want to live like the way I am for the rest of my life.
mm,
And if you don't want to come with me, basically, well, then I'm sorry, but I know where I want to be. And that may seem like so selfish to a lot of people. But then at the same time, whose life are you living for? Are you living for them, or are you living for yourself?
mm,
What are you doing for yourself if you're living a miserable life just because that's what your mom wants to live or your dad wants to live? And it sounds really wrong to a lot of people, because the culture that, at least over here, I know the culture I grew up in, that's not, you shouldn't leave nobody behind, especially being, part black.
mm,
But it's so you know, if you want to go to jail, you can go to jail, but I
mm,
don't want to live my life in jail.
yeah,
So why am I going to go ahead and cover or do this or deal drugs or whatever it is that you want to do that's going to get you locked up or got you locked up 5 times
mm,
if I'm the one that's going to be suffering my blood, sweat, and tears in there, and that's not
yeah,
the life I want. So everybody has the ability and potential to make their own choice for what they want to do. Nobody's holding you back, and if you have things or circumstances holding you back, there's ways to work around it. You just got to find them. You just got to ask the right questions.
mm. Definitely, definitely. I think, like you said, you have to ask those right questions and not be, what's the right word? Is it, is it the right word? Like a product of your environment in some sense.
Hmm.
You don't have to be, whatever is happening around you or whatever's happened based on, you know, um, your environment and certain kind of stereotypes in society. I think you have to decide what it is that you want. And like you said, it might sound selfish saying, I'm going to do X, Y, Z, and, take it, not take it or leave it, but in some sense, yeah, you have to kind of be kind of selfish in some way because it's your life and you need to be happy and have a passion for what you do.
Hmm.
And, it's difficult when, there's certain families who are saying, this is the way you need to live, this is what you need to do, you need to do this job, X, Y, Z. And, you see a lot of that, especially, there's nothing wrong with education at all. But some people then follow certain scripts because their parents have told them to do that or they've seen their
Yep.
parents do that. And then they found out the hard way afterwards, like, oh, I don't actually want to do this. And, you have to kind of listen to yourself deep down. And, like you said, really, really decide, make a decision. And if you don't, if you don't know what it is that you kind of want to do, just keep, I think, trying different things out until you do, as long as you're not falling into those negative sides and you're not doing things that you don't want to do. It's, yeah, it's quite deep.
Hmm.
But
Definitely.
yeah, but I'll let you shoot because I know you said you need to work on your car, and
Hmm.
but no, it's always a pleasure, talking to you, Sam, and I'm so grateful to have you back on the podcast, and I'm so grateful to have this conversation with you. And like, where can people find you on social media and things like that?
Social media. You can find me on Instagram, Rise Body and Soul, RBS. Twitter, Iking Davis, Rise Body and Soul. You can find me on those two using search me one of those. TikTok, Iking Davis. Um, those are really the best ways. I'm most active on Instagram. So if that's where you want to see more of my content, that's where you would find it at. But definitely out of my, I was grateful. I'm grateful to be on the show. Months later in a different headspace from when I was initially on your show, and I'm able to take a different takeout of life and
Mm,
share that with your viewers.
yeah, no, definitely. It's definitely been like, I think definitely a lot of shifts have happened, in like the world and in our lives from that point. And I think it's so, it's really reflective and interesting and powerful when you can reflect back on, how far you've come and what's happened in your life.
Mhm.
And I just look forward to, connecting with you again. And, I wish you all the best and everything that you're doing and keep at it.
Thank you. You too.
No, you're welcome. All good.